Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. I am your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol. And I'm trying to freak Brian out here with this with the shades. But what these are Meta Ray-Ban Wayfarer glasses. They've been out for a little while. I am a late adopter of things. I found out that recently they were available at Costco, but I couldn't figure out how to buy them until this past week. And so they don't have a lot of these, but the price was good. You know, if you're willing to spend $230 on a pair of sunglasses that are non-prescription, but so
Yeah, I sit on them a little too much. I like
right.
$10, so when I sit on them, I could go get me another
All
one
right.
for $10.
Yeah, I know. This I better take really good care of. All right, so I just took a picture of this, what I'm seeing here on screen
Okay.
with this. So these glasses do a lot of interesting things. I'm still kind of learning it. Uh, Meta is the renamed company, the parent company of Facebook, and they launched this partnership with Ray-Ban a couple of years ago or so. And I get a little skeptical after the whole Google Glass thing, which I thought was interesting, but kind of a fiasco with privacy concerns and all kinds of stuff that was going on. Though I had been at a Google event in DC and had gotten to wear the Google Glass. We had a friend of ours and a guy in our central committee. He's a big techie, and he wore those Google glasses everywhere. And you're kind of like, so how much of this is he capturing? the glass, in order to basically allay some of the privacy concerns, is that there's a little light that goes on if you're recording or doing something. There's a tiny little light that will alert other people that something you're recording or whatever. What I want to test it on is next time I get a chance to say drive with my wife where she's driving me, is maybe just take some pictures or take some video as a passenger if I see something interesting, and just kind of
Oh,
see
so you
how that
can
goes.
video.
Yeah, you can video, you can do this. I forgot. It's paired to my phone, and I was listening to a podcast, and I put these things on just before we started the show, and the podcast shifted right into the Ray-Bans and played. So there's
Oh, okay.
speakers also built in to this thing. Uh, they've been so successful that they just announced a deal with Oakley, which is even more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically bought kind of the cheap version, but you and I have been around long enough, and probably Bob out there too, and others, where Ray-Bans were something that we remember when we were much younger.
Yeah.
They were kind of the cool glasses or whatever, and they didn't really change style. They added a bunch of stuff, whatever. But here's Meta, maybe in a sense, kind of reviving the brand or giving the brand just another life with with this technology. Um, but the woman at the counter at Costco, she said, just remember, you can't adjust these glasses. So it's kind of a one size fits all. You can get prescription lenses and spend even more money. You can get transition lenses. I don't know why I'm becoming such a salesman for Facebook at this time for Meta, but anyway, it's just kind of an interesting technology, something that has succeeded to the point that other technology companies, they're looking for a way to try to emulate this, because Snap did a thing years ago that was, had a very faddish effect and then fell off. So, but this one is, listen, it looks like it has some staying power. So, uh, Costco. One of the reasons I shop at Costco, besides the fact it's convenient, is that I know that their markup is no more than 15% on any item. So you're not going to find too many places where you can buy stuff like this with such a small markup. Will I be able to ever get this? Would I have been able to get this on sale even on Black Friday at this price? Probably going to be pretty tough. It might be close, but it probably won't be quite as cheap. So anyway, I'm playing around with it. If anybody out there has ever used these things, we'll see. I think the photo is probably on my phone, I guess. There's more stuff out here than I probably want to learn. Yeah, whatever I just took, Yeah, it's on my phone. So then I could transfer it theoretically to Facebook or whatever. So anyway, enough of that. Uh, when I told my wife I had bought these, she just kind of looked at me like, "What?" I'm like, "Hey, look, it's part of my early birthday thing, right? Where I'm at the age where it's just better if I buy my own gifts,
Oh yeah, yeah,
right? I
absolutely.
wasn't even thinking about it as an early birthday gift, but it's a good excuse.
I mean, Lori has ordered me to stop buying her gifts. Just don't do it. I'm like, okay.
Well, I don't know what to buy my wife in general. I think she's just better off buying her own stuff.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
That's what she says. You
do
know,
we?
I'll
Do
get something I
you?
like. It's
Right.
nothing to do with jewelry. I don't want
Yeah.
any of that. I just cut stuff. Cut my hand. It's just
Right.
injuries.
Right. I mean, I mean, at our age, do we really need the element of surprise? I mean,
Yeah,
sometimes a small little thing is kind of fun,
yeah.
but why don't go and spend a ton of money on something that your spouse is going to say, "Why did you buy this?"
Right, exactly. It's like, if I can come up with food I know she likes, I'll do that. Right.
Yeah.
Surprise her with food. Like anything to do with Reese's, mixing chocolate and peanut butter, I kind of can't go wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, so this is where I've come to in my life. Though we've been kind of we've been buying our gifts so long. I can't even remember the last time we really surprised each other with anything necessarily. But uh, you know, we tell our kids now too that they're grown. It's just like, you know, we're going to give you a gift card to Amazon, do whatever you want, or
Right.
you know, my son's he's got one of our credit cards, and then we say, here's what you can spend X amount of dollars and buy whatever, and this way we just avoid getting them something that's not useful for them and their
Yep.
lifestyle.
That's exactly right.
So anyway, enough of the sales pitch of sorts for Meta Ray Bans and all that. All right, so we have I was going to say the weather's been pretty good, but okay, so I've been talking all summer long about the rain. We've been talking about that, and I've got a lawn, and it's growing. It was growing like crazy. We had to cut the grass every 2 weeks or less. Uh, but lately it's been so dry, it's gone completely in reverse. My wife was she commented yesterday. She goes, "It's turning brown," with a lack of water. And I don't know, Mr. Meteorologist here on the program, but then I haven't looked far enough. Are we? Do you think? What do we know about the weather? Are we getting any rain anytime soon? It's been nice, kind of a nice, coolish August.
Yeah. So coolest week before Labor Day. The week before Labor Day in DC area was the coolest it had been in 38 years.
Whew.
Right. Australia had the coldest night it's had since 2011 last night or night before last. Um, it's we haven't had measurable rain here in about 3.5 weeks. We have some small chance of getting some tomorrow, and then more dry, cool conditions after that. I love it because I hit that 8-iron and it's 10 yards short of the green, and it hits that hard dirt and goes right on that green. When it's soft, it goes down into that mud and you're dead. So it helps me, as long as I can bounce the ball. And really, in Virginia, you can bounce the ball about 2 months a year, if that. Most of the time you're playing in mud around here. Just, it may be a little less muddy one day than the next, but even in the summer here, it doesn't often dry out. But now we're to a point where the ground is really dry. It's really dry. So that ball will really hop. So it's kind of, it can work against you if you hit it too hard, but it's so far so good on that. But yeah, so a little rain tomorrow, and then another. The other thing is these guys are starting to talk about, cold front after cold front after cold front, right? Several of these in a row where it's big shots of polar air this far south this early. And some of these guys, these meteorology guys, are talking about that likely means a very cold winter. Whether it snows or not remains to be seen, but very cold for a long stretch of time this winter.
We'll have to wait and see. I was thinking, you made me think about the hard surfaces. Like one of the things I was thinking about doing was, I've got maybe half my lawn now was zoysia, kind of grass I grew up with as a kid,
Yeah.
um, and it spreads fairly good, but it spreads very slowly. But I have places in the yard I wouldn't mind plugging, like, and my father used to do this all the time when I was growing up. But if it's too hard, it's too hard. It's hard to dig into to create that.
Right.
You've got a device, but you want it to be a little softer so you can go there, and then grab that plug, and it's kind of basically switch out, move everything around. But if I can't get in there, then it's not going to really work anyway. Then I can't get the grass where I want it to be.
Right.
So I need a little softer ground probably at this stage. All right. Well, good. Thank you, Mr. Chief Meteorologist, for our program. You never know what kind of hat you're going to wear, right?
That's right.
And you pay a lot of attention to the weather.
I do. I always have. So, and it's interesting. It's like, these more, like I go to the pools, right? The Weston pools. And now it's down to like only 2 pools that are heated that you can really use, because the others, it gets down to like 53 in the morning. Like those pools don't recover. The pool temperatures are dipping down in the mid 70s, which sounds like plenty warm, but mid 70s water is very cold.
Yeah.
So it's a shock.
So those are public pools, outdoors, right?
Yeah, resting pools.
So, and they're still open?
Yeah, they're open through September.
Oh, okay.
Just limited schedules in the evening. I just go jump in for 30 minutes.
I just kind of figured that once Labor Day hit, everything kind of shuts down. But
yeah, most of it's shut. A lot of it's shut down. But yeah. There you go.
I'm glad you like that.
Bring on that. Oh wow, bring on that cold winter. Yeah.
Hey, look, come on, Bob. It's like,
Bob's in Slidell, man. They're cold winter there, cold winter here mean different things.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I don't mind. I just don't want. I don't want the kind of the cold, icy, snowy winter, because once again, that means I got to clear off the driveway, and I just don't really want to go through
it's
that.
an ongoing hassle all winter.
Yeah,
you deal with the snow. Like last year, it snowed the first week of January, and that snow didn't move for like 6 weeks. It just sat there because it didn't melt. It was cold, so it was in your way. Every time you went, you had to step past the little snow piles and all that stuff. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm perfectly fine to keep my snow thrower in my garage unused.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
I'm happy with that. All right. So news-wise, we've got this interesting thing going on here with Russia, China, and India. And so there's a lot of friction because of the tariffs that President Trump has put on India, for buying a lot of Russian oil during the sanction period and everything like this.
Buying it and reselling it.
Right. And is Modi, is he trying to play 2 sides of the same coin here? Is he what's going on here? Because
he's trying to get, play 2 sides against the middle, and he's trying to be a player, right? I mean, it's you always kind of wondered, like, here's a country with more people than China. And when you talk about the world powers, no one mentioned they're nuclear armed country. When you talk about world powers, no one mentions India. They never have. It's just they're not. So, India has this complex about it. They want to be considered among the most important countries in the world, and he didn't really get the vibe that he could get that with Trump. And these guys are very much puffing him up and making him feel like a big shot, right? Because Russia. The whole thing is like, how do you get Russia's fuel onto the market and China's fuel needs met, right? And India is willing to be the broker and make all that happen. You can't do that without penalties. I guess you saw Trump, the tweet last night, or Truth Social or whatever, where he said, you see you over there, and he goes, and say hello to my friends, Vladimir Putin and Chairman Z, and as you're sitting around betraying the United States of America. So, you put him on blast that he knows what they're doing. And I guess, I guess he wrote this to Kim Jung, his buddy. Yeah, that's right. But that's true. But the thing about it is, they've never been able to like figure out where to be and when, right? They are, since they're out playing a game, there's not really like we're defending principles. The Russians are defending principles. We don't agree with their principles or the Chinese principles, but they have a set of things that they're for and a set of things they're against, and that's what they're pushing, right? Whereas India is just trying to play games and be on the important side. So he's taking a big risk, and Trump's looking for the pain point. And Trump said the other day, he's like, we buy a lot more from them. They buy a lot more from us than we do from them, right? Which is not usually the case with these countries. We don't really need much from them. So he's willing to deal some pain to India to make India stop doing this. It's just like finding the pain point at this point.
Yeah, I mean, is Modi making a mistake here though? Is he playing this a little bit too much? Because I mean, granted, I mean, the three countries represent something, like 3 billion people or whatever, somewhere in that range. And as Bob points out, I mean, India has a history of trying to kind of play this kind of a game for a long time, but they have tended to be thought of as a country that leans to the West. That's their preference, but not necessarily something that they would always do. Right.
Right.
But with Trump, this is a dangerous game to start. You start.
He's
coddling.
not going to take it. He's not Biden sitting there. What do I do? That's right.
Yeah.
That was.
Yeah. So I mean, this. I mean, I think like you said. I mean, I think there's a high risk here for India. By just trying to play here with this. I mean, it's very public. You can't walk back the pictures of these guys like holding hands and
that's right.
All these other things,
clapping him on the back, smiling. It's like we own you now, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming over and getting owned by us. So, yeah. The other thing, two things about that. One is, it's a dangerous game for him personally, right? Because when Trump doesn't really fail at this, he will find the pain point. He will find the thing that makes India really regret being in this situation. And then that will reflect on Modi, because he's the one. I mean, you can't pass the blame for this. He's the one who put them in this, right? The other thing is, who's not in those pictures, right? No one from Europe whatsoever, right? No one from the West whatsoever. Right, it's 3 countries that sometimes, or in case of India, sometimes align with the West, but the West is united on the other side, and that's what has not happened in a long time. So if they want to go at us, I mean, we're the ones with all the money, we're the ones with all the economic, social, cultural power. We have much more energy than they do, access to much more energy than they do. If they want to play this game, they can play it, but they will lose.
Yeah, I haven't looked to see, but I mean, with India's got obviously a very large population, and there are a lot of people who are very poor, very destitute, in the system that they have. You can't make them much poorer, much poorer than they already are at this point. But it's kind of like the people at the top may benefit from some of this, but as a whole, I begin to kind of question whether or not the Indian population, finds this to be is this going to be to their benefit, or with in India's politics can be rather volatile.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean,
there's some sign given to the Indian people that this ain't working. He's in immediate and severe trouble.
Right, so. and he could be at risk. I mean, look. India doesn't seem to have any problem assassinating their political officials.
So, no one say it, but yeah, you can end up in the bottom of a river.
So there could be a lot of other things going on here. So we'll have to continue to watch this situation as it goes forth. But I don't know. Maybe Modi's hoping that that Trump backs off, but Trump is not one. He's not playing that kind of game generally. Trump holds forth, and I don't know if Modi understands that. Trump has gotten a lot of these countries to kind of fall in line, and Modi seems to be somewhat tone deaf. Well, we're going to take the oil, we're going to resell the oil, we're going to do all this stuff, and see how far we can get along with that, and before something else hurts us. I don't know what's really in his brain, but it just seems that he's playing a high wire act at this point.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's very dangerous and can't last long.
Right. All right, so we'll come back here to the States here. So we've had several court decisions that have gone against Trump. Now, I think he's probably going to try to appeal this to a Supreme Court or whatever, try to get some emergency session or whatever, try to get them to reverse that and sustain what he's been doing here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, kind of goes on what I was saying. So, whether it be he had the National Guard decision in L.A., though the judge said that the Guard could stay there, giving time so the Trump administration can appeal that. They've got the deportation. I think they turned around a plane full of children and brought them back. And then
they kept them taken off. This is the people. Yeah. Okay, so go ahead and finish, and then we'll go.
Yeah, and then the world tariffs under IEEPA. So, all right, go ahead.
So the first one was California, the posse comitatus. I think they know that Trump is around, got himself around posse comitatus. I think the court actually knows that itself because of the way they ruled and the way it's set up for the Supremes to knock it down, which I think they will. I don't understand why these people are complaining. Like these guys, what they do works, and you do get your city back running and so forth. I mean, he saved Los Angeles from what could have been a cataclysm, right? Houses burning, government, the reservoirs dry, government utterly unable to respond. They came in and kept the peace and got them through a really tough period. The second one was
the deportations.
So these kids that this is about, their parents are in Guatemala. Their parents are waiting on them. A judge, they're trying to get the kids to Guatemala back to their parents, and a judge is stopping that. That's what's going on there. The good judges have no role in immigration. Had some guy trying to tell me on the internet the other day that Congress runs trade policy. No, it doesn't. The president runs trade policy. The president runs immigration policy, and they'll lose. They'll lose on that. The tariffs that he did under IEEPA, which is not all of them. In fact, I don't even know that it's most of them anymore. They're saying it's a temporary authority and his temporary time has run out and so forth. Trump's people say he has a legal basis to do it and they will prevail in court. I don't know. I'm not expert on that, so I can't tell you for sure, but why would they do that? I mean, it's working. You're getting billions and billions of dollars into the treasury. The cost of one of the things going down is the cost of shipping, right? So that's eating a lot of what got added to the price in theory by the tariffs. So cost of shipping is down 60%. Tariffs are 10%. That's you've wiped it out. You've more than wiped it out, right? These aren't the only expenses, and they're proportional to each other in different ways depending on what you're shipping and so forth. But you're wiping out a lot of the problem with that. So, and even the people who don't like the tariffs, the economists who don't like the tariffs, say no more than about 2/3 of the tariff can be passed along to consumers. So you're not. It's not really. People say, "Oh, your tariffs went up 10%, so your price will go up 10%." That's not what happens. So I don't think that. I don't understand why the fight over this. And if I was Democrats, it's like, if you really think it doesn't work, if you really think it's going to ruin the economy, you should step back and let him finish so you can win an election, right? You can say, oh, Trump messed up the economy, but they don't think that. They know better than that. That's part of the deal is people are willing to lie. This whole generation, these people, the people on the right were told, tariffs bad, protectionism, not free markets, right? And so we just repeated those mantras. No one tried to enact tariffs in any kind of serious way over that 40 years or whatever. And so now when someone says, hey, that's a way to generate a lot of money, sort of reset some trade imbalances. Oh, no, we can't do that. They start regurgitating what they've heard for 40 years, which may or may not be true.
Yeah. So, I understand, the terms of the, calling out the National Guard in D.C. Trump can do that because the District of Columbia is a district. I mean, the federal government more or less runs the district.
Right. That's right. That's a good point.
And the states run the states. Whether or not he really has jurisdiction to call the National Guard for this type of thing, I can see where there's some question marks. But I think the underlying thing here, whether or not you're LA, Chicago, whatever, even if you wanted to go to New York, it's just that
Baltimore.
they need more policing,
Right.
And this is what this is trying to tell them is that you guys need more policing. And instead, what you did is that you went in the reverse direction. You let all the liberals took over and thought, okay, we're going through the whole defund the police nonsense and everything like this, and then you basically opened up your cities to become even more crime ridden than they were before. The police were stretched before to fund the police. They're really they're at breaking points in a lot of places because of that, and you're now not doing a whole lot about it, but you're complaining about the federal government saying, we're just trying to show you what can happen there. I mean, the DC is kind of a unique place, but I saw something the other. I guess I saw a report where Muriel Bowser. I mean, she says carjackings in DC are down 87%.
Yeah.
And so she's grateful for that. There are other things that she doesn't like. I mean, the liberals don't like about these things. And I think there was a reporter from one of the networks who was complaining about the National Guard being out there, but she's had her car stolen 6 times in DC. It's like, you should be thankful that there's something going on here.
So I guess she came out yesterday and said that she wants to extend indefinitely the feds helping her police the city. Well, right. Yes and no. I don't know.
Well, yeah, we can talk about that too.
There's a lot of issues in there. Also, the voter registration numbers, it's basically the Republicans have netted about 4.5 million voters since the election are now registered Republicans. So, they're about to pass in North Carolina. I don't think since Reconstruction, North Carolina has been a majority Republican state. Same thing in Pennsylvania. So, their look for the midterms is not really good. Their chances of, also this redistricting thing, Newsom can say what he wants and do what he wants, but it's going to be about 8 or 9 net seats to the Republicans. What would probably be smart for Newsom is to drop it, let Texas have their 5 or 4, whatever they get, and move on. Because the more you do it, the more Indiana and Florida and all these red states jump in. And like your Maryland guy, he's like, we're going to redistrict Maryland. Finally get rid of Andy Harris. Just one donkey, right? Right. And after what they did to Roscoe Bartlett, you can never trust them again. So, I don't know. I don't think that. I think that Trump totally conned Newsom on that one.
Well, go back to what you're saying about Bowser and the policing.
Well, she came out and said, continue it indefinitely. It's helping us. Okay. The other thing is, Trump, the leftists are all over this one. They are cleaning up garbage. You got soldiers out there cleaning up garbage. And then last night, a guy was on Twitter said, the DC, garbage removal people cost X amount an hour to do this. The National Guard costs $1,000 an hour to do this. And like, but it wasn't getting done, right? Like the whole thing around Union Station. Union Station was, when I first started, like when I first went to work at Heritage in like 2001, early 2001, there was a lot of restaurants in there, and there were stores, fashion stores. It was like a pretty thriving little operation in there. And then, it just started to shrink and shrink. And now there's very little open over there. And most of it's like fast food garbage. And, all the area around it is trash and junkies and, human excrement and so forth. And the Army, the National Guard has gone in and cleaned that up, right? It's now back to being serviceable. They've moved all those people off to wherever it is they move them. And Union Station is thriving again, and you can start back opening businesses and so forth there. And people don't understand, like that's the impression people have of Washington, both people who live in Washington, people like you and me who live nearby and have to go into Washington, and people who don't live here and are viewing all this from afar. That you change the image a lot by fixing what's going on just around Union Station. Also happens to be basically across the street from the Capitol. So you're fixing a neighborhood that a lot of these members of Congress, their staffs, the think tank crowd, this congressional aides and so forth use. This is where they are after dark, right? Where they might be vulnerable to muggings and whatnot, and car theft and whatnot. That's the neighborhood they're starting with to clear out. And they're making a dramatic difference.
Yeah, with regard to Union Station, it has had this has been a 50, maybe 60 year or more, issue up and down, back and forth as to who owns it, who how they're going to redevelop it. They've had leaky roof problems, all kinds of stuff. And there was a period when you would walk in, kind of like you say, and it was pretty full. There really were no empty slots for retail, stores or restaurants. The food court was pretty full. So it had its thriving moments. And, at Christmas time, they had that huge train thing set up, which was really kind of neat. And they've got a wonderful atrium. These kind of old time train stations, Grand Central Station, St. Louis, redid theirs, but they kind of turned into a mall, but it's kind of in the wrong part. It doesn't work yet for them. The last time, it's been years since I visited, but it's like, it needs a little more oomph, The redevelopment of a lot of these things tends to suffer. The wrong people are running it, or they misunderstand what is needed there.
Right. But they're used to, you get people used to not going there. It's hard to get them used to coming back.
Right. And Union Station can be a crown jewel of the district for a lot of things, for shopping, for dining and everything like this. But you've got to put the money into it. You've got to make sure it's safe and secure, because, before there was down the street, there was the Greyhound station, and, there were some sketchy things going on around the area. Right. Heritage is only a block away, but it's like, Heritage was almost a pioneer to locate there.
That's right.
In that sense, is that they're just because it's Capitol Hill doesn't mean everything around it is great.
Yeah. And Heritage now has to spend an enormous amount of money on security.
Yeah. I'm not surprised. It's just, it's just one of those things, like, where do you want to be out at night? The district has got some thriving areas, but they've got some other areas that are still somewhat problematic with that regard. I think, with regard to, deportations, that's still kind of a sketchy thing to me in terms of who's really going to win that battle. I guess I would probably lean Trump on this until the courts can sort it out, and they can say that
winning all the, what are they 19-1 at the Supreme Court or something like that.
So. Yeah. I think when it goes to the highest court, you see a little bit, you'll see something a little bit different there. The tariffs are going to be trickier because R.I.P, apparently, I guess, in the brief or whatever that was filed by the Trump administration and in his executive order, I guess it was when he signed off on that, one of the things he had said there is that, trade deficits have been a problem for like 50 years. Well, that almost undermines some of your argument as to why this is an emergency. If you're talking about something that's been around for 50 years. So, he didn't do himself any favors by saying that. And so I think that battle is going to continue, going on there. As far as Bob's saying that, the tariffs are going to be, that'll be the midterms will be a final verdict. We're going to see a lot of different things. I do worry to a certain extent that the tariffs, if we start to see, and we are seeing small inklings of an economy that is starting to have a little bit of an issue here with higher prices. The manufacturers are saying we're not going to absorb these increases. We've kind of worked through the pre-tariff inventory, and now we're in the tariff inventory. So we're going to have to pass along a lot of those costs because we don't have a profit margin that we can absorb all of those costs. So
the last month it went from 2.3 to 2, so it went down.
2.3 to 2 what?
The percent inflation.
No, the inflation and the PCE was still around 2.9, and it was higher than it was the month before. So inflation is not going anywhere right now. It's staying. It's right now. It's kind of slowly trending up, but it hasn't jumped huge numbers. I mean, the market is kind of looking at this and they're like, okay, it's still in range, right? They look and they model and they say, here's our expectations for the month, and so far the inflation has stayed within those expectations. But
and you're getting what? 3.5% growth, about 4.5% wage growth. So the workers are getting out in front of it.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, well, yeah, to an extent, but employers are now tightening their whole thing too. Whereas that we're seeing less hiring. We'll probably see a little more unemployment creep up. AI is playing a little factor in that. There's going to be a lot of things. The
good thing about the hiring before you leave that one is like who's not getting hired? Government workers, right? We're going way down on government workers, huh?
College graduates are not getting hired,
and we're going way down on government workers though, and up in private sector. So,
well, yeah. Look, I don't have a problem with cutting the size of government, right? That's not if unemployment is largely going to rest on the back of where we start seeing because of the cutbacks at USAID, at the education department, shutting down CPB, all these kind of things. Yeah, all this kind of stuff. That federal government is full of bloat and has been for decades. So that's a good thing. What the problem now they're running into is just that we've got a lot of college graduates that are not being hired. So they haven't found anything yet. I don't know what the solution to that is. I know AI is playing a part in that.
AI is playing. And also, it's like the degrees not matching the needs of the job market.
Well, that's part of it. I mean, look, I've got our daughter-in-law, Spencer's widow, her brother, I think he's been out of college graduated college 2 years ago. Anyway, computer science guy should have had a pass somewhere. He doesn't have a job yet. Now, I think there may be some other forces at play in here, but I was thinking the other day that his skill set may no longer apply in today's world. That what he may need to do, and others like that who thought that computer science and those types of things in that area were going to be a guaranteed ticket to a high 5-figure, low 6-figure salary, may need to go back and look at getting training in AI, prompt engineering, and things like that, because their jobs in the AI part of the world, that's what companies are looking for. They're looking for people who know how to use and make AI work better for them, and not as much as the IT computer stuff like they used to. So, we're seeing a development. We're seeing the ongoing development changes in the world like we have for decades and decades as things just change, right? We used to be a very industrial nation, and now we have all a big service economy, all of these kinds of things. So things will change for whatever reason. I mean, I've got a a nephew who works for Tesla, and he's been there for 6 or 7 months, and so he wants to move on to something a little bit bigger and better, something more challenging. But that's not necessarily going to be easy. He's getting some experience, but I don't know if that's enough to get him a job in another field yet. And, unless he also adds something else to his resume that says you almost have to put AI in your resume, I think, as a young person to get even the AI agents that are looking at your resume to sort it out from everything else out there, right? So it's just kind of crazy. But there's no doubt that I think tariffs have an effect on the economy, or will. To what degree, I'm still not sure yet, because I think we're still kind of going through that as we're seeing price increases. Home Depot and Walmart saying, we're going to let prices rise. I don't know to what extent that is. I think you pointed out earlier, it's like just because a tariff is 10% does not mean the price to us is 10%. There are so many factors that go along the way there. People will absorb some of that and maybe pass 3/4 of that on, or half of that on, or whatever.
Right.
But they've kind of hit their limit with that. So we don't really know exactly where that will land us finally. So yes, to Bob's point, tariffs could possibly have an impact on the 2026 election. But also to your point about the registration is that, under normal circumstances, I would have thought Republicans are going to have some problems in the midterms, but the Democrats are even in worse shape. They still can't get out of the muck, right? They are still in disarray. They have, here we are, coming up on, 13 months away from the midterms, give or take. And they still don't have a message except, we're not Trump, whatever,
No,
or we hate
Trump. We hate
right?
Trump. That's their message.
So that's not a message. I mean, that message only sells to a certain part of their base at this
which
point.
is going to vote for him anyway. So
which is right.
You're not adding there, right? And like I say that, the voting registration numbers are still moving away from Democrats.
Right.
So, it's still being.
And so those things are going to work against the Democrats no matter what. So I'm not sure that the Republicans wind up with an extremely large majority after 2026. But under the tradition of where the party in power tends to lose seats most years, I'm not sure that that's going to happen this time.
Yeah, around. I don't see it happen as the way the math is right now. I don't see it happening.
If the election was held today, I think we gain seats, right?
Yeah, we would gain seats.
We gain seats,
and it could get worse if they try to redistrict. If California approves the redistricting, then you're going to see all these other states do it, and you're going to end up, they're going to end up down 8 seats from where they are now, which gives you a workable, not solid, but workable majority. Yeah.
Well, if California voters reject, Newsom's attempt here to do this,
that's not out of the realm of possibility, right? There's a good, strong, well-funded campaign of people saying, hey, you wanted this fair, independent commission, and now, you want to show Trump something, so screw the fair, independent commission. So, and it may that, if they're really goo-goos, they're really good government types, then, that argument could be strong.
And I think too that the, even if you're not crazy, and I'm not crazy about Texas redistricting in the middle of the decade, kind of a thing like that, that the Democrats, I think, are being shown for the petty people they are, and it's nothing but a charade. I mean, Eric Holder and his redistricting whole thing, that's just a bunch of leftist nonsense. They're being exposed for who they are at this point in time, and I do think that voters are smart enough to understand that it's like, look, as you just said, you wanted an independent redistrict commission. We gave you an independent. Now you're saying you want to now gerrymander even more and squeeze more juice out of something where you can barely do that anymore. I mean, you've got a 43-9 majority. How much more can you switch this?
Right. And how much can you switch it without, something like 17 counties in California went from blue to red in this last election. And so how much switching can you do before you start weakening some of those 43?
Yeah. In the solid red states, they have more margin. They can do that, and create more Republican seats without affecting a lot of the other districts too much. Then comes the race card. If people say, "Oh, but you got to do this, you got to do that," but
well, see, that's under that. The Supreme Court is going to rule in a case. I guess a month from now, when they reopen in October, pretty soon after they reopen, that challenges the racial set aside. It's a case actually out of Louisiana, where Shreveport is far northwest. They're up at the top of the boot, right? There's a district that includes parts of Shreveport and like strips diagonally down the state to include parts of North Baton Rouge, so that you can create a majority Black district there. And they sued and said, if we don't have to do that anymore, why do we have to have this district, right? We should have, they're supposed to be contiguous. They're supposed to be, compact, to where the people of similar interest have a congressperson, right? And this thing is set up, and it's like a sliver down the angle from, basically the highway from Baton Rouge to Shreveport, to get enough Black neighborhoods in there to elect a Black congressman. So if that doesn't happen, if the court rules, throws out Louisiana's map, then there's a lot of states that have these required, got to set up one district for Black people districts, that they're going to be in trouble. I mean, that's a big threat to the Democrats. I think some of them understand that, but a lot of them don't. But that if Louisiana, if they win that case in Louisiana, you could be talking about 10, 12 seats going Republican.
Yeah, look, I mean, I hate the idea of having these racial set-asides for districts. The whole idea that you have to have you're carving out districts for Blacks or Latinos or whatever. It's like, look, you put up the best candidate you can in your district, and then you go out and you get the vote, and you get people to vote for you. If you're a Latino candidate, and you want to get elected to Congress, go do the legwork, go do the groundwork. Don't come in, don't say, I need to have this district like 60% Latino voters already packed in here, 70, so that I can assure myself that I will have a job in Congress. No, that's the back end lazy way of doing it. Go out there and do the work, get the vote, earn the voters' respect, earn their vote, and then get elected to Congress. And if you rise from there, that's great. But when you're basically just giving people of all these races a seat at the table like that, that's actually doing them a disservice.
Yeah, because you're getting leadership. It's like Philadelphia, right? They don't have to care about crime or filth or anything in Philadelphia, because the Democrats are okay with it, and Democrats can't lose an election. So you don't get better service out of having Democrats guaranteed those seats, right? And then probably Republicans too. You get better service out of the government, having to respond to the people because of political pressure. I mean, that's how we make progress.
I mean, because it can get to be kind of a ridiculous kind of a thing. I mean, we have a Black seat, have a Latino seat. So then, I mean, what is to stop things? Because we've already seen this in terms of, voter registration materials, which is like in California, it gets translated into a bunch of different languages. What is to say that you can't have a Vietnamese district or a Korean district or a Chinese district? It's like, this is ridiculous. I mean, where does the buck stop?
Yeah, where's that in the Constitution, that each race gets congressional legislation?
Yeah, exactly.
Has a right to it, a court endowed right to it, right? Yeah. I remember Sandra Day O'Connor saying that we should not need all this in 25 years. She said that a lot more than 25 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's just ridiculous how this is all developed. Yeah. I do want to throw. Bob had commented, but I was pontificating here, so his 2 cents about union stationary. Yeah, libations. Right. What kind of libations would they have been?
Yep. Probably some beer. No, I mean, Bob. We're researching how to get glasses that actually hold the beer. And like you drink the beer, there's still beer in the glass. So we're trying to figure that out. So there's a lot of like, you got to test a lot of beer and a lot of glasses to try to get this just right.
Well, it's like, is it half empty or is it half full?
That's right.
Scientific.
Why does it keep going empty?
Yeah. Yes, please, Bob, chime in here. But how scientific was that study?
I mean, we're still working on it.
Well, here, the other thing too, though, is that I think even to Bob's point, it's just that, what made me think when I saw this comment was just that you get a lot of tourists in DC. They go to Capitol Hill because they want to see Congress and the Senate and the Supreme Court and all those kinds of things that are up there, right? So some of the great things that we've got up there. But if you go to Union Station, it's had its ups and downs. What are we telling the tourists? In terms of this is how representative this is of DC. It's just it needs.
Now the other thing is that the points you raised earlier, though, it kind of comes back to is DC is different legally than Chicago or LA. Trump has authority in DC that he does not necessarily have there. So you do need to you got to take that into account.
Yeah. All right. We'll move on here. I saw an interesting article in the journal yesterday and was talking about
mine too.
Nicely put.
Good Catholic boys.
Yeah, I know. That won't happen to the Mormon boy.
That's right.
It'll be just like root beer.
There you
go. But it was interesting because this at the end of September will be September 30th. Basically marks the end to the EV subsidy, right? The $7,500 tax subsidy and all those kind of stuff. And we have talked about EVs off and on the show. And green energy, the whole gamut of things like this. Well, vehicles are flying off the car lots. Deals are being made. I mean, car dealers are incentivized because they got to get these things off the lots because after September 30th, they're going to be dead weight, I think, right?
Right.
And that $7,500 incentive goes away. That's going to dramatically affect things. But so they're getting increased sales. But they're also getting, I hadn't even thought about this until apparently Colorado, they talked to a dealer in Colorado. Colorado sells more EVs than any state in the country. And they're doing lease deals. And the owner of the dealership said that, his rule of thumb for years has always been that if you can get a lease deal for 1% or better of the list price, a sticker price, then you're doing good. And he says it's crazy because apparently the lease deals that are being offered are going below that. So that I didn't even know what this car was. It was a Kia Niro, and depending upon, I don't exactly know the terms, but the monthly payment was something like $40 a month. Now lease deals you got to remember what's kind of looked at is that you're paying a monthly plus taxes, insurance or whatever. But you're also having to put usually a down payment, something due at signing, and then the rest you just do over 36 months or whatever. But my eyes just kind of lit up. I'm like, well, that's really interesting. I mean, I would, if I could find, I don't know, I just toyed with the idea. It just briefly, I was like, I wonder how much it would cost if I went to a dealer and tried to find an EV, and get it on a lease or whatever. How much would that really cost me? What's the cost of ownership for that? We don't drive a lot, so I'm not sure that's really efficient to do that. But EVs have this, there's something interesting about them, and we see more and more of them. But this may be the, kind of the last big push on EVs and their sales will be this month. And then after this, I don't know, we've seen, we've already seen the car manufacturers pull back their manufacturing of EVs, and they all went into the EV thing, and a lot of them lost a lot of money. They started to pull back. They're now trying to get rid of these cars, and I'm not sure what the future without that subsidy of EVs is in the U.S., at least in the short term.
Right. I think what happens is you chase out pretty much everybody but Elon, right? like the Ford, Chevy, they're not going to want any more to do with this. But he's set up to make these cars, and there is an audience for them. There are people who like them, and there's, you know, he has a network of charging stations set up now. It's not complete, not full, but, you know, workable. So, you know, I think that you see him retrench. He's probably already figured out how to do that. And I see everyone who can get out of it, get out of it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, look, Elon is, you know, he is just some guy who's always on the move. I mean, the car business is part out there, but he's already kind of moved on from the Teslas, you know, because he's into robotics. You know, he really thinks his Optimus robots will have a big effect. He is trying to get his autonomous kind of taxi, robo-taxi thing going. You know, he's years behind what Google Waymo have done with theirs, but even that is a slow rollout. You know, for that,
they could be caught real easily. You know, they're ahead of him, but they're not far ahead of him, and
so
they haven't really moved the ball a lot recently.
Right. So they got that. I mean, he has SpaceX and all these other ventures. So I don't think that Tesla is going to wind up being the car itself is going to be winding up to be a smaller part of the company business. He is looking at that, and who knows what else, you know, he will develop.
Right. I mean, you know, because you think about it, what is he chases? He chases subsidies, right? He's in the solar business, he's in the space business, he's in the EV business, all things where the government injects a lot of money into the market, right? The market survives because of a big infusion of government money. So if the government money is going to go out of EVs, you know, he'll at least rethink and possibly get out of that business.
Right. Yeah. Right. It just becomes something that the car.
It's no longer part of what has traditionally been his model.
Right. Right. I mean, it won't be the dominant force. I mean, I think he's even publicly stated that, you know, like Optimus, the robots will be, I think he said up to 80% of his business, but, you know, like everything else, it takes a while to ramp any of those things up.
That's right.
And the market probably likes to hear from, you know, like they like newer and more innovative things. All right. Well, once again, we've taken up most of our time, and I can't get this show to go any shorter, but we have a good show. So what can I say? All right. So we're not going to hit all these rest of these topics. I just want to get your thoughts on a couple of things here, and we'll end it. One is the whole Cracker Barrel fiasco.
Yeah. So, you know, it's like they're making a profit, but they're making less profit, and you know their market is not growing, and the market. I mean, if you think about, you know, all those kinds of restaurants, all the chain restaurants, chain sit down restaurants, you know, Fridays, Chili's, you know, all of them are in trouble. All of them are retrenching. So it's not just Cracker Barrel. So they come in and they, you know, their thing was to make it, you know, a lot of got made of the logo. They took the guy off the logo, and it just was a corporate looked like a Dollar General logo, you know. But I think the thing that really hit people about this was the decor in the stores, in the restaurants, right? You go there, you're you know, the food is meh, but it's an experience, right? There's this old stuff. There's the game with the little golf tees on the table, and, you know, horseshoes and things that you don't normally in this era ever see, right? When I was a kid, there were a few people around who had horseshoes and had, you know, use those kind of implements still, but now, you know, you don't really see that anymore. So, you know, they changed all that. These, you know, and they made it look like these, you know, what's the one that McDonald's used to own, the Mexican place, Chipotle. Yeah. So they all look like Chipotle, streamlined. You know, that's what they're trying to do. You know, I said some guy, I guess he had the contract to remodel 250 Cracker Barrels, and so he puts on Facebook or Twitter. He says, you know, this is the first of our 250 ones that we've remodeled on behalf of Cracker Barrel. What do you think? And I wrote back and said, it's not your fault. And the guy writes back and goes, thank you for recognizing that. So I mean, that's kind of where they are. So yeah, and obviously, you get these people in there, and I don't know about the role of woke. That might have gotten a little overplayed. I mean, she tried to modernize it. This lady's modernized other companies and turned them around and helped them. So it's not like she doesn't know what she's doing, but she stepped on a rake here. So, people they liked Cracker Barrel as it was, and they expressed loudly that they didn't like the changes. And then they responded and said, okay, no changes.
Yeah, look, I mean, restaurants undergo changes over time because you have to adapt to the changing tastes of the population. But Cracker Barrel, to me, just kind of represented Southern comfort food, kind of a thing like this. It was kitschy, homey.
Yeah.
You walk in, you have to kind of go through the little store to get to the restaurant part. So you get to see all this funny, interesting
Trinkets and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you talk about all the little games and stuff at the table. The food wasn't outstanding, but it was fine. It was an experience, as you said.
Right.
And what they've done here was just that, they were trying to redo the menu, redo the store part of it. And then I think the logo was just the last straw. It wasn't necessarily that they were going woke per se. I mean, they just kind of made it a flat logo. I mean, but it's just, that was it. The diehard Cracker Barrel fans, I just were probably just that's it. It's like you've tried to change this store, this restaurant that we love. That's it. We can't.
Why do you have booze on the menu? One thing, to get booze on your menu is a terribly bureaucratic thing to have to do, right? Most of these people, they hire lawyers to straighten it all out. So, why would you go to all that trouble? I mean, no one goes to Cracker Barrel to drink, right? That's it. You go there, you're looking for breakfast, or you're looking for something, chicken fried steak or whatever, a Coke, right? You're not looking for that. And so I think they kind of misread their audience on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Certainly on the logo and all that.
All right. One more thing, which is what you had mentioned, you added, which was the passing of George Raveling. So I wanted you to go ahead and give a comment here.
Yeah. So George Raveling, he coached at Washington State, Iowa, and USC. And all three places, the first season he was there, he had a losing record. And then after that, there were winners for the entire time he was there. So he was a very good basketball coach, a black coach at white schools at a time when that was not all that prominent. That is not prevalent as it is now. And a guy who the last time I saw him, he was going around with John Calipari, and they were hitting clinics and stuff. And John Calipari gave his speech, and then Raveling got up, and when he talks about is empowerment, is like, get your kids to use basketball to get to higher place in life, right? Most of them aren't going to play in the NBA, so use it to improve your career prospects. Your adult life can be forwarded, advanced, improved by if basketball is handled correctly. He was his later years after he got out of coaching, he worked for Nike, and he introduced Sonny Vaccaro, who's the all-time basketball shoe guy, to Michael Jordan, and that's how you got Air Jordans. That all started with Jordan. Jordan himself said, "No George Raveling, no Air Jordans." So a good man, a good guy, a good dude. Mark Knoller. I wanted to say something about him too. So I knew Mark a little bit, and people don't understand like what an institution he is in Washington, because he was there every day. He did not take days off. Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving. He didn't really have a family, so that's where he was at the White House. He was out working, chronicling the White House. He's the one who had the most reliable records on how many days of vacation they took and all that kind of stuff, because he was there studying it, right? And, the world turns on people like that who take a subject, in this case, it's the White House, right? It's the president, and they're willing to follow that more intensely than anyone else and tell us what they're seeing on the inside. And that was Mark Knoller, the guy who literally worked all the time. I recommend that to everybody? No, but for him, it was right. It like that's the way he lived his life, and he's a good man.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, he was quite the institutional knowledge that he had there for many, many, many years. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty lively show. Remember, please, as always, to stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America. And we will see you again next week.